Hi, Neil again, in a very noisy area with a lot of traffic. Doing a survey this morning, again in southwest Durham, and been round and inspected the property, but what I've got is on this gable elevation, which is the right hand gable elevation, we've got quite significant damp staining, a bit of salt there behind the paperwork. So I've just been walking around with the gentleman who owns the property, and he said, yeah, you know, as far as I'm aware, that these properties, the age of the property, they don't actually have a damp-proof course installed at the time that they were constructed. So they have had a chemical damp-proof course installed at some time in the past, but that's that right-hand gable end. So I'm walking back out, and we're walking along. Now, the first thing to notice is there's your physical damp-proof course. You've got a bitumen damp-proof course in there, but what you can see is the damp-proofing company have then drilled through the bitumen damp-proof course, and that's the same throughout. They've literally hit the damp-proof course in every location. So we switch along, and then what we've got on this gable end, that is the gable end where we've got the problem with the damp. But look at the difference in the ground levels. The ground level in the neighbour's property is around about 250 to 300 mil higher than that damp-proof course. So what they've done by raising these levels inside this property, they've actually bridged the original damp-proof course, a perfectly good working bitumen damp-proof course. So the property never had rising damp. It was literally the fact, well, sorry, to some degree, yes, it could be argued it did because the damp-proof course had been bridged by the external ground level. But realistically, you know, forming a channel along this gable end and getting that ground level below the level of the DPC would have been more than adequate to allow the bitumen damp-proof course to perform. But instead, what happens? They come along, the contractors, and they start, I mean, first, this contractor, there was no note of a damp-proof course in the contractor's report. This is the opposite gable elevation. You can see the physical damp-proof course there, 75 mil above the air bricks. Perfectly formed, stepped, obviously as it should be. So, you know, even though the property looks of an age where it may not, or you automatically assume that it wouldn't have a damp-proof course. It's what I've always said is expect the unexpected. It's got a perfectly good damp-proof course there, a bitumen damp-proof course. But then, you know, because of a lack of understanding, we end up in a situation where they do that and they drill through the actual bitumen damp-proof course to put the chemical damp-proof course in. It's just disappointing when you see that, you know, that it's stood there for so long, and then they come in and cause the damage to what is, you know, functioning perfectly, other than the fact that they've then come in and destroyed it. So there you are. So it goes back to what I've said on many of the videos. Actually, what they've also done, they've raised the ground levels in this location, and they've bridged the air bricks. So now we've got our 9x6 air brick is now roughly a 9x1.5 inch air brick. But I'll advise the client, you know, to reduce these external ground levels. They've done exactly the same on this elevation. So we've got a 9x3 now, but it was originally 9x6. The subfloor ventilation is very strong, so it hasn't really compromised it, but it's better to be safe than sorry. So as I always say, you know, make an effort to find the damp-proof course, because it answers the question of what the cause is, and then you just work that out, work from backwards from there. So there you are, there's our damp patch, which does look like rising damp, but if we lower those ground levels externally, you know, we're going to resolve that issue. There may be some repairs needed to the plaster work, but yeah, nothing significant. Okay, thanks for watching. Bye bye.